There's a new fashion trend these days, and that is socks, colorful socks. And you know what? I'm into it because I've always had kind of a soft spot for dyes. Obviously, there's a very interesting chemistry involved. And these are my new socks, and I don't worry about them one bit. But had it been way back in the 1800s, had I purchased colorful socks like this, there would have been a concern. Now, it was back then, in the middle 1800s, that synthetic dyes were born. And it was almost a magical thing. It was Sir William Henry Perkin whose accidental discovery of mauve resulted in, a variety of beautiful colors all over the place. And people flocked to this. They wanted to have socks with all these kind of beautiful colors. But a problem creeped in, and that was rashes that people started to develop on their feet. And it turned out that one particular dye, crinoline it was called, was causing these rashes. And there was an uproar over this when it hit the newspapers. And a physician in France became really worried about this when he found that many of his patients were suffering from these rashes. So he extracted the red color and wanted to see how toxic it was. And he injected it into a dog and also into a cat and into a frog. And all the animals died. This, of course, hit the press as well. And it turned out that that was a big deal. People wanted to stay away from these particular dyes. And crinoline all of a sudden had this infamy of causing all these rashes. However, soon another issue creeped in, because others tried to reproduce that work and were not able to do it with pure crinoline. And there was an interesting answer to this conundrum. It turned out that the dye wasn't actually the problem. The problem was that they had used what we call a mordant. That comes from the French word to bite. Mordants are chemicals that hold a dye to a fabric. And amazingly, they were using arsenic compounds in order to do that. And it was arsenic that was causing the rashes. And arsenic was also used in wallpaper at that time the same way. And that resulted in particles of dust coming off of wallpaper that caused toxicity problems as well. And the most interesting of that was what happened to Napoleon. Napoleon, of course, died at a relatively young age, and the diagnosis was stomach cancer, but there are some people who say that it was the green wallpaper that actually caused the problem, because arsenic was coming out of that, and that is what triggered his stomach cancer. Somewhat controversial, but I think there's a real possibility there. So anyway, these days, I don't worry about the color of my socks, and I particularly like these that I recently purchased because of the color mauve that takes us back to the 1800s. I really like that. And I also think that, there's no issue with the dye, so that whenever I tell quacks to go and put a sock in it, I don't have to worry about any toxicity.